My name is Beverly Cross. I'm 48, divorced, and I've been quietly running my own event venue for the last decade. Living alone means no one bothers to notice me, until my sister's wedding planner tried to extort $50,000 from me. My phone rang at 3 in the afternoon, the number unfamiliar. I answered while folding laundry in my small apartment, expecting a telemarketer. Beverly? This is Francesca Dunn, your sister's wedding planner. Her voice was icy, dripping with superiority. We need $50,000 more by Friday, or the venue is off. I froze, a towel slipping from my hands. What? That wasn't in the original contract. Circumstances have changed. Additional fees, upgraded services, vendor coordination. It's all very standard. She sighed, as if explaining something obvious to a child. Your sister signed off on everything. My sister Natalie stood across my living room, watching my face fall. She said nothing, just looked away, uncomfortable but silent. I don't understand, I stammered. This is. And don't bother calling the venue owner, Francesca interrupted smoothly. I handle him directly. He's very cooperative with my requests. The call ended before I could respond. I stood there, phone in hand, staring at Natalie. Did you know about this? She shrugged. Francesca knows what she's doing. Just trust her. My stomach twisted. 2 days later, we gathered for a family dinner at our parents' house. The dining room smelled like roasted chicken and fresh bread, but I had no appetite. Francesca arrived late, sweeping in with designer sunglasses perched on her head and an expensive leather portfolio under her arm. She kissed Natalie's cheek, then turned to me with a thin smile. Beverly, darling, about our little conversation, she said loudly, ensuring everyone heard. I know you're confused and emotional about the finances, but that's perfectly normal. Most people don't understand how high-end weddings work. My mother frowned. Is there a problem? Nothing serious, Francesca said, waving dismissively. Beverly's just having trouble grasping the investment required for Natalie's special day. Natalie laughed nervously. My brother-in-law Marcus avoided my eyes, suddenly fascinated by his dinner plate. I opened my mouth to defend myself, but Francesca continued, I've done this dozens of times. Trust me, I always win. She smiled sweetly, but her eyes were cold. The table fell silent. I excused myself to the bathroom, hands shaking. That night, I spread the wedding contract across my kitchen table. Every page, every clause, every signature, I studied them under the harsh overhead light. My coffee grew cold as I read. The numbers didn't add up. Francesca had added fees that didn't exist in the original agreement. Venue consultation surcharges, premium coordination services, emergency vendor liaison fees. These weren't gray areas or misunderstandings. These were fabrications. Then I saw it, a secondary page with Natalie's signature, approving charges I'd never seen before. My heart sank. Had Francesca tricked her into signing? Or had Natalie known all along? I pulled out my laptop and started digging deeper, cross-referencing vendor contracts and payment schedules. The more I looked, the worse it got. Francesca wasn't just overcharging. She was systematically deceiving everyone involved. I closed my laptop, mind racing. This was fraud. And somehow my sister was caught in the middle. But there was something Francesca didn't know, something no one in my family knew. After my divorce 10 years ago, I rebuilt my life from scratch. I took my settlement money and bought a struggling event venue on the edge of the city, a beautiful old mansion with gardens and a ballroom. I registered everything through an LLC, using my maiden name Cross instead of my married name. I hired a manager, Marcus Sterling, to run daily operations. I stayed in the background, handling finances and strategy from my laptop. I didn't want power or recognition. I wanted peace. I wanted to create something beautiful without the drama that had consumed my marriage. My family knew I did something with events, but they never asked details. I never volunteered them. It was easier that way. Less explaining, less judgment, less pressure. But now, as I sat in my quiet apartment staring at fraudulent invoices, that peace was gone. Francesca had picked the wrong person to deceive. She had no idea she was threatening the actual owner of Riverside Manor, the venue she claimed to handle. I picked up my phone and texted Marcus, "We need to talk." Tomorrow morning. His reply came instantly, "Everything okay?" I typed back, "Not yet. But it will be." The next morning, I called Francesca back, my voice carefully measured to sound desperate. "Francesca, I've been thinking about the additional fees. Is there any way to negotiate?" She laughed, a sharp sound that made my jaw clench. "Beverly, sweetie, this isn't a farmer's market. These are professional services. You either pay or I find another venue." "Another venue? But everything's already planned." "Exactly," she interrupted. "Which is why you should stop wasting my time and just write the check. Unless you want to be responsible for ruining your sister's wedding." I let silence hang between us, as if considering. "I'll see what I can do," I finally said. "Good girl," she purred. "Oh, and Beverly? I've already warned the vendors that Riverside Manor might collapse financially, just in case we need to make a quick transition." My blood ran cold. She was sabotaging my venue's reputation while demanding money. "You told them what?" I asked carefully. "Insurance, darling. I always have a backup plan." She hung up. I sat motionless, phone pressed to my ear long after the line went dead. She'd just made her first major mistake. I drove to Natalie's house that evening, determined to talk sense into her. She answered the door in yoga pants, her hair tied back, looking exhausted. "Bev, if you're here to complain about Francesca..." "I'm here because I'm worried," I said firmly. "These charges aren't legitimate." "She's lying to you." Natalie crossed her arms. "You're jealous. Francesca warned me you'd cause drama." "Jealous?" "Natalie, I'm trying to protect you from being scammed." She stepped back, eyes hard. "You've always been like this. Critical. Negative. Maybe you can't stand seeing me happy because your marriage failed." The words hit like a slap. "That's not fair," I whispered. "If you ruin my wedding, I'll never forgive you," she said coldly. "Francesca knows what she's doing. You don't." She closed the door in my face. I stood on her porch, heart hammering, fighting back tears. Then I turned and walked to my car, determination replacing hurt. If Natalie wouldn't listen, I'd have to prove it another way. Back home, I sent Francesca a formal email requesting itemized invoices for all charges, polite, professional, by the book. She delayed for 3 days, claiming she was swamped. When the documents finally arrived, I printed them and spread them across my dining table. That's when I found it: duplicate charges routed through a company called Donovan Solutions LLC. I ran a business registry search. The company was registered to one person, Anthony Dunn. A quick social media search revealed Anthony was Francesca's cousin. She was funneling wedding expenses through a shell company, inflating costs and pocketing the difference. I took screenshots of everything, saved copies to multiple drives, and compiled a detailed spreadsheet. Every fraudulent charge, every duplicate invoice, every false fee, documented and timestamped. Then I called my attorney Paul Henderson and scheduled a meeting. "How bad is it?" he asked after I explained the situation. "Bad enough for criminal charges if she pushes this." Paul whistled low. "Let me review everything. We'll build a case she can't ignore." I hung up, feeling the first flicker of control returning. Francesca thought she was untouchable. She was wrong. A week later, I attended the final venue tasting at Riverside Manor. Natalie had insisted I come, probably hoping to smooth things over. I arrived early, dressed simply, blending into the background. Francesca swept in 20 minutes late, barking orders at the catering staff like a general commanding troops. "This tablecloth is wrong. Fix it. The flowers are wilting. Replace them. And where is the owner? I need to speak with him about adjustments." Marcus, my manager, stood near the entrance. He spotted me and started to approach, but I subtly shook my head. He paused, confused, then nodded slowly. Francesca strutted around my venue, my beautiful venue that I'd poured my heart into, treating my staff like servants. "The owner is desperate," she announced to Natalie and Marcus. "Trust me, he'll do whatever I say." These small venue owners always do. My jaw clenched. I watched her belittle a waiter for bringing sparkling water instead of still. Watched her dismiss the florist's suggestions with a wave. Marcus caught my eye across the room, questioning. I gave him a small, reassuring smile and mouthed, Later, when the tasting ended, Francesca left without thanking anyone. I stayed behind, helping stack chairs and collect discarded napkins. "Boss," Marcus whispered when we were alone. "What's going on?" "Patience," I said quietly. "Just a little longer." The next morning, Francesca sent an email with the entire family copied. Subject: urgent. Final payment required. Asterisk: due to Beverly Cross's continued refusal to cooperate and multiple coordination challenges, an additional $50,000 is required by Friday at 5 p.m. Failure to comply will result in immediate vendor cancellations. I will not be held responsible for any disappointment or inconvenience caused by her obstruction. Asterisk. Francesca Dunn, Premier Wedding Design. My phone exploded with texts. My mother: "What's happening?" My aunt: "Can you please just pay?" My cousin: "Why are you making this difficult?" Only one person didn't text: Natalie. I stared at Francesca's email, reading the barely veiled threat. She was cornering me, forcing me to either pay or look like the villain. I hit reply, keeping my response simple and public. Asterisk: Francesca, please proceed exactly as you intend. I look forward to resolution. Beverly asterisk. I pressed send, then sat back and waited. Marcus called immediately. "Beverly, what are you doing?" "Giving her enough rope," I said calmly. "For what?" "To hang herself." Friday morning arrived. Vendors started calling Natalie in a panic. Florists, caterers, the DJ, the photographer. All had received cancellation notices from Francesca. Natalie called me screaming. "What did you do?" "Everything's falling apart." "I didn't do anything," I said calmly. "Francesca canceled them." "Because you refused to pay." "Natalie, those charges are fraudulent." "She's scamming you." "You're lying." "You're sabotaging my wedding because you can't stand." A beep interrupted her tirade. I pulled my phone away to check the notification. An email. From the photographer. Forwarded to me by mistake. The subject line. Client mental instability concerns. "Natalie, I need to go," I said. "Don't you dare hang up on." I ended the call and opened the email. The forwarded email was from Francesca to multiple vendors, dated 3 weeks earlier. Asterisk: please be advised that the bride's sister, Beverly Cross, has exhibited concerning behavior. She is emotionally unstable and may attempt to interfere with vendor arrangements. Do not take direction from her under any circumstances. All communication should go through me exclusively. Asterisk. I read it twice, then 3 times. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from fury. She'd told vendors I was mentally unstable. She'd poisoned my reputation, my credibility, to isolate me and control the situation. Something in me hardened. The instinct to be kind, to stay quiet, to keep peace, it evaporated. I forwarded the email to Paul, my attorney, with a single line, "This ends now." Then I typed another email to Francesca. Asterisk: I'd like to schedule a meeting. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., Riverside Manor. Please bring all documentation. My attorney will be present. Asterisk. I pressed send before I could second-guess myself. Her reply came within minutes. Asterisk: of course, darling. Looking forward to clearing up these silly misunderstandings. Asterisk. I smiled grimly. She had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I arrived at Riverside Manor an hour early. Paul met me in my private office, a room most staff didn't even know existed. "She thinks this is a negotiation," Paul said, reviewing his notes. "She's going to try intimidation first, then play victim." "Let her," I said. At exactly 10 o'clock, Francesca arrived. She wore a cream pantsuit and carried a designer handbag that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. We sat in the conference room, me, Paul, and Francesca. Marcus stood quietly by the door. Francesca spread her invoices across the table with exaggerated patience. "Now, Beverly, I understand you're overwhelmed, but if we just go through these line by line." "Ms. Dunn," Paul interrupted smoothly, "could you explain the purpose of Dunn Event Solutions, LLC? Her smile faltered. "Just for half a second. That's my consulting entity. Perfectly standard. And these duplicate charges routed through that entity? Administrative fees." Paul nodded calmly. "I see. and the emails to vendors claiming Ms. Cross was mentally unstable. Her face paled slightly, but she recovered quickly. Protective measures. She was behaving erratically. By asking for legitimate documentation? Francesca's jaw tightened. I've already cleared everything with the venue owner. He's fully supportive of my methods. Paul glanced at me. I remained silent. Perhaps we should call him, Paul suggested. Francesca's confidence returned. Excellent idea. Paul opened his laptop and turned it toward Francesca. The venue has a very specific clause regarding planner misconduct. Any misrepresentation, fraud, or vendor manipulation results in immediate contract termination, with cause and without refund. Francesca waved dismissively. I'm well aware of standard venue policies. But as I said, the owner and I have an understanding. Then you won't mind if we verify that, Paul said. Not at all, she replied smugly. Call him. I watched her carefully. She genuinely believed she held all the cards. She'd probably charmed Marcus, assumed he was the owner, and built her scheme around that misconception. Paul nodded to me. I stood and walked to the door, stepping outside into the hallway. My heart pounded. This was it, the moment everything changed. I pulled out my phone and called Marcus's cell. Inside the conference room, his phone rang. I stood in the hallway, phone pressed to my ear, listening as Marcus answered on speaker inside the conference room. Riverside Manor, Marcus speaking. Marcus, it's Beverly. Is Ms. Dunn still there? Through the door, I heard him respond, Yes, Ms. Cross. She's right here. Good. Please put me on speaker. There was a pause, then Francesca's voice, tight with confusion. What is this? I took a breath and stepped back into the room. All eyes turned to me. Marcus held his phone up. Ms. Cross, you're on speaker. I looked directly at Francesca. Thank you, Marcus. I'll take it from here in person. Recognition dawned slowly on Francesca's face, not understanding yet, but sensing something wrong. Marcus ended the call and looked at me. Should I stay, Ms. Cross? Please, I said. Francesca's eyes darted between us. I don't understand. Who are you calling Ms. Cross? She's just the owner, Marcus finished quietly. Beverly Cross owns Riverside Manor. She always has. The room went silent. Natalie, who just arrived and stood in the doorway, gasped audibly. Francesca's face drained of color. I walked to the head of the conference table and sat down slowly, maintaining eye contact with Francesca. You wanted to speak with the venue owner, I said calmly. Here I am. Francesca's mouth opened, then closed. She looked at Paul, at Marcus, at the door as if considering escape. That's not possible, she stammered. I spoke with my manager, I finished. Marcus handles day-to-day operations. But I own the venue. I always have. Natalie stepped forward, her face pale. Bev, is this true? I didn't look at her. I kept my eyes on Francesca. I purchased Riverside Manor 10 years ago, after my divorce. Registered through an LLC. I stayed quiet because I valued privacy over recognition. I slid the printed invoices across the table. My copies, the ones showing duplicate charges, the shell company connections, the fraudulent fees. I stayed quiet out of love for my sister, I continued. But you mistook my silence for weakness. Francesca's hands trembled as she reached for the papers, her carefully constructed facade crumbling. These are accounting errors, she whispered. No, Paul said firmly. These are fraud. Paul pulled out his own documentation. Screenshots of the shell company registration, the emails to vendors, the contract violations. Ms. Dunn, you've systematically defrauded your client, defamed Ms. Cross to multiple vendors, and violated the venue's code of conduct. The consequences include immediate contract termination, full refund of fees paid to you, and formal reporting to the Association of Wedding Professionals. Francesca's breathing quickened. You can't do this. I'll sue. I'll. With what grounds? Paul asked calmly. Everything here is documented, time-stamped, and corroborated by third parties. I was just trying to provide exceptional service. Francesca's voice rose, desperation creeping in. By inflating costs through a shell company? By telling vendors my client's sister was mentally unstable. I shook my head. That's not service. That's exploitation. Marcus cleared his throat. I should mention, we've had 3 other planners inquire about Ms. Dunn's methods in the past 6 months. She's been doing this systematically. Francesca stood abruptly, chair scraping against the floor. This is a setup. You're all conspiring against me. No, I said quietly. You conspired against yourself. I just documented it. She grabbed her handbag, papers spilling from the table. You haven't heard the last of this. Paul stood. Actually, we have. Your contract is terminated effective immediately. You have 48 hours to refund all fees to Ms. Natalie Cross. Failure to comply will result in legal action. Francesca looked at me one last time, her eyes filled with fury and fear, then stormed out. The door slammed behind her. The room remained silent for a long moment. Natalie stood frozen by the door, tears streaming down her face. Bev, she whispered. Why didn't you tell me? I finally looked at my sister, seeing her fully for the first time in weeks. Not as the bride who dismissed me, but as someone who'd been manipulated just as much as I had. I didn't tell anyone, I said gently. It wasn't about hiding. It was about building something separate from family expectations and opinions. But you let me sign contracts, pay her, believe her. I didn't know she was scamming you until she called demanding $50,000. I interrupted. The moment I realized, I started investigating. Everything I found confirmed she was running a systematic fraud operation. Natalie sank into a chair, burying her face in her hands. My wedding is ruined. No, I said firmly. Your wedding planner is fired. Your wedding can still happen. She looked up, confused. Francesca doesn't own your wedding, I continued. The vendors are still available. The venue, I gestured around us, is obviously still available, and we have 3 weeks to reorganize everything properly. Paul nodded. I've already prepared documentation for vendor outreach, explaining the situation and confirming their contracts remain valid. Marcus added, I can recommend an excellent replacement planner. Someone I've worked with for years who's professional, transparent, and honest. Natalie stared at us, hope flickering through her tears. You'd still help me? After everything I said, I reached across the table and took her hand. You're my sister. I was always going to help you. Francesca sent an email that evening, attempting damage control. She blamed miscommunication, offered vague apologies, and suggested we could work through this professionally. Paul responded with a formal legal notice. No negotiation. No compromise. By Monday, Francesca had been removed from the Association of Wedding Professionals website, pending investigation. 3 other former clients came forward with similar complaints. The shell company dissolved overnight. Anthony Dunn claimed ignorance, but bank records told a different story. Francesca tried one last desperate move. She emailed me directly, late at night, her tone swinging between apologetic and threatening. Beverly, I made mistakes, but you're ruining my career. I have a family to support. Surely we can find a resolution that doesn't destroy me? If you continue this path, I'll have no choice but to pursue legal action for defamation and breach of contract. I read it twice, then forwarded it to Paul with a note. File this with the others. His response: the empty threats of someone who knows they've lost. I deleted Francesca's email and blocked her address. Some battles you win by fighting. Others you win by refusing to engage. The following week, Marcus introduced us to the replacement planner, a woman named Simone Torres who'd been coordinating events for 15 years. Simone arrived with a tablet, a calm demeanor, and no pretense. She reviewed what Francesca had planned, identified what was salvageable, and proposed adjustments where needed. The foundation is solid, Simone said, looking at Natalie with genuine warmth. We just need to rebuild trust with vendors and streamline communication. Within 48 hours, Simone had contacted every vendor personally, explained the situation diplomatically, and confirmed their participation. The florist sighed with relief. I knew something was off with that other planner. She was always so aggressive. The photographer admitted, I almost backed out. The way she talked about you, he glanced at me, made me uncomfortable. I'm glad the truth came out. The caterer simply said, Simone is a professional. This is going to be a beautiful wedding now. Natalie watched the transformation with quiet amazement. After the final vendor call, she turned to me. I'm so sorry, Bev. For everything. I know, I said. And I forgive you. She hugged me then. Really hugged me. The way we used to before life got complicated. Francesca cornered me one last time, 3 days before the wedding. I was leaving Riverside Manor after a final walkthrough when she appeared in the parking lot. Beverly, please. Just listen. I stopped but didn't turn around. I made mistakes, she said, her voice breaking. But I didn't mean for things to spiral like this. I have clients who depend on me. If word spreads, I'll lose everything. I turned slowly. She looked smaller somehow, without the designer clothes and confident posture. You didn't just make mistakes, I said quietly. You systematically lied, stole, and defamed people. You told vendors I was mentally unstable. You inflated costs through a fake company. You threatened to ruin my venue's reputation. I was desperate. The wedding industry is cutthroat, and I needed to stay competitive. By being dishonest? She had no answer. I stepped closer, my voice steady. You asked me not to ruin your career. But I'm not ruining anything. I'm telling the truth. What happens to your career is a consequence of your choices, not my actions. Tears streamed down her face. Please. The investigation will proceed, I said. If you're innocent, you'll be fine. If you're not, you'll face consequences. That's justice, not revenge. I walked to my car, leaving her standing alone in the parking lot. The wedding day arrived sunny and perfect. Riverside Manor looked like something out of a fairy tale. Gardens in full bloom, the ballroom glowing with soft light, every detail exactly as Natalie had dreamed. Simone moved through the space with quiet efficiency, coordinating vendors, adjusting last-minute details, ensuring everything flowed seamlessly. I helped Natalie into her dress in one of the Manor's dressing suites. She looked stunning, radiant with happiness and relief. I can't believe we pulled this off, she said, smoothing her veil. You pulled it off, I corrected. I just helped remove an obstacle. She met my eyes in the mirror. Why didn't you ever tell anyone about owning this place? I adjusted a strand of her hair, considering the question. Because I didn't need to be seen to be strong. I just needed to be prepared. She nodded slowly, understanding dawning. Power doesn't announce itself. Exactly. A knock on the door. Our father's voice. Ready, sweetheart? Natalie took a deep breath, squeezed my hand, and said, Ready? The ceremony was beautiful. The reception was joyful. And when Natalie gave her speech, she thanked me publicly. My sister Beverly saved this wedding, she said, voice cracking with emotion. Not just by fixing problems, but by showing me what real strength looks like. She could have walked away. Instead, she fought for me, quietly, strategically, and with more grace than I deserved. The room applauded. I smiled from my table, content to let my sister have her moment. Months passed. The wedding became a beautiful memory. Natalie and Marcus started their life together. Our family relationships healed slowly, conversations growing easier. Francesca left the wedding industry entirely. I heard through Marcus that she'd moved to another state, working in retail management. The investigation had found multiple violations, resulting in professional sanctions and required restitution payments. Several of her former clients reached out to thank me. One woman wrote, Asterisk, you probably saved me from the same nightmare. Thank you for speaking up, asterisk. I didn't seek recognition for any of it. I just returned to my quiet life, managing Riverside Manor from behind the scenes, watching couples celebrate their joy in the space I'd created. One Sunday morning, I walked through Riverside Manor at sunrise. The gardens were peaceful, dew sparkling on rose petals. The ballroom stood empty and elegant, ready for the next celebration. This place represented everything I'd built from the ashes of my divorce: independence, beauty, purpose. Francesca had tried to take it from me through manipulation and lies. Instead, she'd lost everything while I remained standing. Not because I'd been louder or more aggressive, but because I'd been prepared. Because I'd built something solid that couldn't be taken through deception. Marcus found me by the fountain. Got the final quarterly numbers. Revenues up 18%. I smiled. The honest approach pays off. He laughed. Who knew? We stood together, Watching the sun rise over the gardens I'd planted, the venue I'd saved, the life I'd carefully reconstructed. Natalie visited me that afternoon at my apartment, bringing coffee and pastries. "I've been thinking," she said as we settled on my couch, "about what you said on my wedding day. About not needing to be seen to be strong." I sipped my coffee waiting. I spent so much time trying to prove myself. The perfect wedding, the perfect life, all of it visible and impressive. She paused. "Meanwhile, you quietly built an empire. And I never even noticed." "It wasn't an empire," I said gently. "Just a business I believed in." "But that's the point," Natalie insisted. "You didn't need validation. You just did the work. And when someone tried to take advantage, you had the power to stop them because you'd been strategic all along." I nodded. Success isn't about announcing yourself. It's about building something real, then protecting it when necessary. She hugged me. "I'm so proud to be your sister." For the first time in years, I felt like we understood each other. Today, I sit in my office at Riverside Manor, reviewing proposals for next season's events. The morning light filters through tall windows, casting warm patterns across my desk. My phone buzzes occasionally, vendors checking details, couples requesting tours, Marcus updating me on operations. It's quiet, peaceful, exactly what I built this life to be. Francesca tried to extort $50,000 from me, using intimidation, lies, and fraud. She assumed I was powerless, dismissed, easy to manipulate. She was wrong. I didn't destroy her. I simply revealed the truth. The consequences were hers to own. And I never raised my voice once. That's the thing about real power. It doesn't need to announce itself. It simply exists, quiet and unshakable, ready when needed. I closed my laptop and walked through my venue one more time, past the ballroom where Natalie danced on her wedding day, through the gardens I planted with my own hands, along the paths where countless couples have celebrated love. This is mine. Built from nothing, protected when threatened, sustained through honesty and hard work. Francesca tried to take it. Instead, she lost everything. Her reputation, her career, her credibility. And me? I'm still here, still standing, still creating beauty in the quiet spaces where real strength lives. That's victory. Not loud, not flashy, but absolutely, undeniably complete.